Joining us on the live line, we have Senator Roy Blunt. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Chad and Josh. Good to be with you. What's the weather like in Joplin this morning?
It is beautiful. We're going to hit high around 80 today and just sunny skies, and it's looking great outside.
Yep.
Well,
good. I'm going to be there tomorrow. I've got some things scheduled tomorrow. I look forward to being there tomorrow. And of course, I've been thinking the last few days about what happened a year ago and the way families were impacted by that and how lives were changed forever. But I'm really proud of the way Joplin decided that they were going to look to the future, and big things have happened that are going to continue to happen in Joplin because of the spirit of the community coming out of the tragedy a year ago.
Well, talk to us a little bit about your experiences and connections to Joplin, particularly 1 year ago around May 22nd. Where were you when you heard the news, and how did you react?
You know, I don't remember where I was when I heard the news. I know when I saw the first pictures, how I thought, surely this is the very worst spot. And then I was there within a day or so, and I do remember very well driving around the tornado-impacted area with a veteran policeman. And you guys know I had an office in Joplin for the 14 years I was in the House. I've probably been in Joplin as many times as almost anybody who doesn't live there. And of course, I was with a policeman, and he and I were driving through these tornado areas as we could get through them. And neither of us could quite figure out where we were about half the time. I mean, it was so destroyed and so disoriented. And frankly, I kept thinking of the pictures I'd seen starting from the time I was a kid of atomic bomb blast or something. It was that kind of no leaves or bark on trees, none of the things you'd normally see, you could see. Stories of families whose lives were going to be changed forever, but then you saw people out trying to pick through the rubble and find photos and their favorite clothes or whatever they were looking for, that people were already in the business of coming back. And the other thing I remember is, this is a good reminder of when you have a problem, the first responders are your neighbors, and the last responders are your neighbors. No matter how many people have been there in the last year, the people that are still there to help your family are the people that are your closest neighbors and your friends at church. And it was a devastating experience, and particularly devastating for those people who lost somebody. You and I can't do anything to ever replace that or to act like it didn't happen, but it was an unbelievable amount of damage in a community, and it just, you remember what it was like, and I do too, and so does everybody that was there or saw it.
KZRG News Time is 7:45 on the live line. We're speaking with Senator Roy Blunt. Senator, I had a dream last night that we had a budget put together. Was it a dream or was it a nightmare?
Had to be a dream. I voted yesterday on some budgets. I voted against the president's budget and against a couple that Republicans offered that I didn't think quite make sense, but I voted for a couple of budgets, too, that would balance. I don't think, our problem is the majority, led by, doesn't want to make their members vote on a budget, and I don't think a single member of the majority voted for a single budget, including the president's budget. And
wow.
51 of them, there are 54 Democrats, 51 of them could pass the president's budget if they wanted to, and it would become the Senate-passed budget. But no Democrat voted for any budget that was off. And you can't do the fundamental job straightened out unless you start with the budget. You just have to have one. The Senate now hasn't obeyed the law for 3 years. The law says you have to pass the budget by April 15th. It's now 3 years since the Senate passed the budget the last time.
What do you make of the president's budget and it receiving such a poor welcome?
Well, I think it's just they're very straightforward about it. Harry Reid just says it'd be politically foolish for us to say what we're for. Mm-hmm. Now, what does that tell the people that senators work for? It'd be foolish to tell people what we're for. It would be political suicide. What we're for. We've got to make a decision here. Do we want to become Greece and Italy and Ireland and the list goes on of European countries that let their government get bigger than their economy could support? Or do we want to say, no, that's not who we want to be. We're going to insist on another direction, and you can't do that without a budget.
Do you think that we'll see anyone even attempt or even the possibility of a budget before elections?
No. You can't have a budget unless the House and the Senate both agree, and the majority in the Senate is very clear that they do not intend to have a budget. So we won't have a budget. It'll be 3 years since any Democrat in the Senate went on record saying what they were for in terms of spending. And we'll see if that's good politics or not. You and I know it's not good government. Mm-hmm. We'll see if it's good politics not to be for anything. It's okay to be against what I'm for, but you have some obligation to be for something. You can't just be against everything because you don't want people to know what you're for, and that is the stated position of the current majority leader in the Senate. And so for 3 years, and I think it's the only 3 years ever that this has happened. From 1974, when we passed the law, and of course that was long before I was in the Congress or much of anywhere else, when we passed the law that said we'll have a budget, the budget will then allocate money to the various parts of the government, and then the appropriators will appropriate money within those guidelines. And every year the House and Senate passed a budget. They didn't always agree. There's nothing that can force the House and Senate to agree, but every year they passed a budget until 3 years ago when the Senate decided they just weren't going to have a budget anymore under the current majority, and they haven't had one. And because of that, we've spent over almost $11 trillion, and we've gone almost $5 in debt during that 3-year period of time that the Senate refused to say what the Senate was for. We heard criticism yesterday, well, your budget will eventually cut some programs. Of course it will. Mm-hmm. And you can be critical of what I'm for if you can be for something too, but if your position is, I'm taking no position on anything, I'm just going to criticize your solution, you're clearly not part of the solution, you're part of the problem.
KZRG News Time is 7:49, and Senator, we know that you're returning to Joplin. Someone else is returning to Joplin. That's President Obama. He's going to be here for the commencement address for Joplin schools. Was wondering what your take on the president's visit to Joplin. What are your thoughts, and do you think this is purely a political move?
I think any time a high school can get the President of the United States to be the speaker at commencement. I like commencement. I was a university president for 4 years at Southwest Baptist University before I went to the Congress. I think commencement, high school or college, is one of the great things that happens in the life of a family. And gee, to have the president there, that's extraordinary. So good for the graduates, and it'll be a little more trouble than if the president wasn't there. But I still think it's an extraordinary moment, and why he's there, I don't know why he came, but if I was a parent of a graduate, I think I'd be pleased with that, to have the President of the United States there as part of that day. And we'll see what the president has to say. I do know that his education policies, his healthcare policies, are making it hard for states to keep tuition low at colleges and universities, and there are lots of things you could be critical of the president for, but he is still the President of the United States, and he's going to be in Joplin, Missouri for high school graduation, and I would say good for the graduates. That'll be a memory that very few high school graduates ever get to have.
KZRG News Time 7:51. Senator Roy Blunt, thank you for your time this morning.
Hey, it's great to be with you guys. I know you do a good job every day and provide lots of information to people as they're beginning to get ready for their day and to get started with their day, and I always enjoy talking to you.
Well, thank you, sir.